Is it possible to lose body fat and gain muscle relatively fast at the same time without amazing genetics and without steroids? And that's a question a lot of people ask, and I get asked this all the time on social media. And the answer is kind of a little bit tricky. It's a little bit vague. So let me break that down. So I've had clients that have managed to lose body fat and gain muscle at the same time entirely in a calorie deficit with semi-decent genetics, no steroids, and no gimmicks. Take my client Reese, for example. He was able to lose about 32 pounds of fat whilst gaining muscle entirely in a calorie deficit in exactly 12 months. No steroids, very little cardio, only training 2 to 3 days per week. But this kind of result isn't typical for everyone, and that's because it depends on your starting point. If you've been training for say 3-4 years and you want to go on a diet to lose body fat, chances are you're probably not going to gain a lot of muscle because you've already had your newbie gains. Whereas Reese was quite new. He had a personal trainer before working with me, but he was just doing cardio, box jumps, and machine work, nothing that was really going to get him anywhere. So he hadn't really tapped into his fully newbie gains. So with the right strategy, he was able to lose body fat and gain muscle at the same time. So it can be done and it is possible, but it's not a typical result, and it really depends on your starting point. Now I'm going to break down the exact strategy that me and Reese did so you can learn from it and basically copy it. And that should help you fix your skinny fat physique as fast as possible. But there's one thing that's probably holding you back, and a lot of men do this. They try and do everything at once. They go to the gym, they're trying to eat in a calorie deficit and avoid carbs, but they're trying to lift bigger weights, they're drinking gainer shakes, they're trying to get bigger, stronger, leaner, all in the same time, which generally isn't going to work. And because of that, they end up getting nowhere, they hit a plateau, years go by and they look the same. And it's a little bit misleading because at the start, you're going to see progress because it's new, right? You go to the gym, you do a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and you will get bigger and stronger because it's all brand new. But eventually your body gets used to it, you hit a plateau, and because there's no strategy, there's no definitive calorie intake, whether it's a surplus, deficit, maintenance, whatever, you end up just looking the same or going backwards. And that means you're probably going to fall off, lose motivation, and just not really want to stick to it. Trying to lose body fat and gain muscle is kind of doing two things at once. So you kind of need to pick one side to focus on a little bit more than the other. So for example, if Reese was to go onto a bulk, all those areas of body fat that he has would only get bigger. Sure, he'd gain some muscle, but he'd look worse for doing so. He would be building himself a longer cut to do at the end of it. And the longer the cut, the more likelihood of more muscle loss. So yes, he wanted to add muscle, but we need to start with a cut first. But on the flip side, my client Avi over here, he was kind of starting off just pretty skinny, really very lean, very skinny, but still wanted to add some muscle. He's already kind of had his newbie gains. So for him, he went straight into a lean bulk, bulked up and added as much size as we could whilst keeping the body fat as low as possible. And then we just jumped into a mini recomposition to get him shredded whilst keeping the size, which has worked really well. So what we did with Reese is we picked one thing to focus on at a time. And we started off with a recomposition. And it's like a cut, but we go for a smaller calorie deficit and we focus on strength training. And the reason we did this is most people go on a cut and they go, right, light weights, lots of cardio, and they lose weight, but they also lose a lot of muscle. And by the end of it, they're kind of just a smaller version of skinny fat. Very, very few people will get shredded and lean just by doing cardio and eating less. And that's basically what Reese was doing with his personal trainer beforehand, which is why he got stuck and eventually came over to ask for some help. So what we did is we worked out what his maintenance calories would be once we built his workout plan. And then we took a 500 calorie deficit off of that number. So he was in a small deficit, small enough that he was losing body fat, about a pound per week, but it was still enough to perform, get stronger in the gym, and sustain muscle tissue by avoiding eating too little and going catabolic. Because if your calories are way too low, if your deficit's 1,000, 2,000 calorie deficit, your body will lose muscle tissue because you're not eating enough to sustain it. So again, you're just going to get a smaller version of skinny fat. And a lot of people, just do that, then add muscle, but they don't realize how hard it is to add muscle, especially if you're naturally skinny. So with Reese, because we had a small calorie deficit, it was very easy for him to stick to his diet, but he was also able to get stronger in the gym because he was still eating enough to recover and perform well. And we made sure that his protein was high enough that he was recovering and keeping muscle, so everything in the gym started to improve. So we tracked his calories, we tracked his weigh-ins, we reviewed his progress photos, and we tracked his workouts to ensure that he was improving and not hitting any plateaus. And of course, plateaus are inevitable. So once he did hit those plateaus, we reviewed it weekly and we were able to increase or change or adapt his training program based on his genetics and progress so far. So basically what this means is he was losing body fat, he was getting stronger, he was getting fitter, and he was also increasing his metabolic rate because he was slowly adding muscle tissue to his frame. So by the end of it, he was able to lose his belly, lose his moobs, build up his arms, build up his pecs, lose the lower back fat, actually bring in his abs for the first time ever, all whilst being in a calorie deficit. So in my opinion, if you're skinny fat, you want to start with a recomposition and be strategic with it. Pay attention to those numbers. Because if you just go, right, I want to lose body fat, I want to get muscle, it's a bit here, there, and everywhere. And if you go on a bulk or you don't officially track your calories and you just eat whatever, or you just eat good foods, not a lot's going to change. And I cannot tell you how many messages I've had from different men saying, hey mate, I want to try and lose body fat and gain muscle. As soon as I go, what's your plan? They go, well, I'm doing a run this day and I've cut out carbs and I'm avoiding bread and I'm avoiding sugar and lifting weights. I'm having this gainer shake. I'm taking creatine. I might try CrossFit. I might do a high rocks. And it's like, okay, so you're doing everything, which is good for fitness. Exercise. If you're talking just exercise, brilliant. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things. That is really good. And it's better than nothing, as people say. But if you're trying to fix a skinny fat physique, a year's going to go by, 2 years going to by, you're just going to be stuck. I even have friends that have been doing it for 8 years and they look the same and they still like, oh, what should I do? What should I do? And as soon as I tell them, you got to track your calories, you got to get this done right, you got to train like this, they're like, okay, Might do keto, they're just all over the place. Pick one thing, stick to it, and adjust it over time. You will speed up your results tremendously. That's what we did with Ross. That's what we did with Matt. That's what we did with Leon. That's 11 weeks, by the way. Andy got ill in between, so it wasn't even 11 weeks of progress. That's what we did with Josh. That's what we did with Brandon. And again, that was 11 weeks as well. Sometimes it's quite quick depending on the person and how often they stick to the gym. That's what we did with Tom. That's what we did with Ricky. You kind of get the point, right? It's a proven strategy. It works exceptionally well. And if you're skinny fat, that's what I'd recommend, because it will save you losing muscle. It will save you going on a bulk and getting fat and then have to do a massive cut at the end of it. And you kind of fix 2 birds with 1 stone with 1 strategy. So hopefully that helps. Start with a recomposition. And if you need to know your numbers, there is a free nutritional blueprint in the bio, so you can work that out and get it right as well. I also go into depth on how to set your macros, so it's very, very helpful. And if you want me to actually help you do this and implore this, there is a call link in the bio. If there's any spaces, they'll be available there, and we can see if I can help you out one-to-one. And if you have any questions, you can drop me a message on Instagram at Elite Transformation Project. And if you want to know a little bit more about the strategy we employ with my clients, click this video here.